Your past doesn't haunt you. You haunt yourself with it. You drag it behind you, a rusted chain rattling with every step, a burden you refuse to drop. Every mistake, every failure, etched into your mind like scars that never fade. A shadow that doesn't just follow, it clings. It whispers in the quiet moments, reminding you where you fell, how you failed, who you used to be. And worse, you listen. You replay those moments like a curse on repeat, convincing yourself that this weight is yours to bear forever. That's the lie they fed you. That your past is a life sentence. That your mistakes are brands seared into your skin, permanent, inescapable. But here's the truth. The only reason your past still owns you is because you won't let it go. Your past doesn't define you unless you let it. You see, people love to remind you of your failures. They'll drag your mistakes into every conversation. Make sure you never forget. Not because they care, but because they fear who you could become if you stopped letting your past control you. Think about it. Why do they bring up your worst moments when you try to rise? Why do they mock your growth instead of supporting it? Because as long as you believe you're still that same person, you'll never evolve. And the worst part? You do their job for them. You hold on to the guilt. You wear your past like a scarlet letter, apologizing for things you should have outgrown. You build a prison from old failures, sitting inside a cell where the door has been open this entire time. But let me ask you something. Do you own your past, or does it own you? Because there's a choice here. Either you let those ghosts haunt you, keep you trapped, keep you small, or you turn them into fuel. Your past is not a curse. It's a forge. It burned away who you were so you could become something stronger. But first, you have to stop gripping the chains and let them fall. Because the only reason your past still weighs you down is because you refuse to drop it. Regret is a strange thing. It doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It grows, takes root, wraps itself around you like chains tightening with every memory you refuse to let go of. Mistakes aren't the enemy. It's how you let them shape you that determines whether you rise or stay stuck. Some people don't move forward, not because they can't, but because they won't. They stay in the past, reliving every failure, every wrong turn. Not because they enjoy the pain, but because they believe they deserve it. You've seen it before. The person who never tries again after failing once. The one who lets one betrayal keep them from trusting anyone. The one who refuses to take risks because they fear repeating an old mistake. They convince themselves they're being cautious, but in reality, they're just building a bigger cage. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've spent years carrying the weight of something you can't change. A decision that still haunts you. A moment you wish you could take back. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. Regret is dead weight. You either carry it forever, or you drop it and walk free. You can replay your mistakes 1,000 times, but that won't change a damn thing. It won't undo the past. It won't make you whole. All it does is carve those failures deeper into your soul, turn them into wounds that never heal. And the worst part? You're the one doing it to yourself. The past is already gone, but you keep resurrecting it. You keep giving power to something that should have died the moment you decided to change. So what's it gonna be? You can keep carrying that weight, dragging it into every decision, every relationship, every new opportunity. Or you can let it go. Not because the past didn't happen, but because it doesn't deserve to control you anymore. You made mistakes. So what? They don't define you unless you let them. They won't let you forget. You could change your life entirely, build, grow, evolve. But some people will never see it. They'll hold on to the version of you that fell, that failed, that made mistakes. Because to them, your past is more useful than your progress. Society loves a villain, but it hates a redemption story. People don't like change, not in themselves, and definitely not in you. Because if you rise beyond your past, what excuse do they have for staying the same? It's easier for them to remind you of who you were than to acknowledge who you've become. They'll call you a liar when you change. They'll call you fake when you grow. They'll call you undeserving when you succeed. Not because they know you, but because they need to believe you're still the same. And that's the trap. You spend your days trying to prove you're different, that you're not your mistakes, that you're better now. And with every desperate attempt, you let them win. Because you're still letting them define you. You're still letting their judgment weigh more than your own growth. What if I told you that you don't owe them proof? What if I told you that your change is valid, whether they see it or not? They will try to write your story for you. They'll turn your past into a prison cell, slap a label on you, and tell you that's all you'll ever be. Let them talk. You don't live there anymore. You get to decide where you go from here. You get to rewrite the narrative. And the best part? You don't need their permission. Growth isn't a crime. Evolution isn't something to be ashamed of. But they'll make you feel like it is. They'll act like your improvement is a betrayal. Because to them, your progress is proof of their stagnation. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them struggle with it. That's not your burden to carry. You don't owe them guilt. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them an apology for breaking out of the box they tried to keep you in. So forget what they say. Forget what they think. The only thing that matters is who you decide to be. You've been running for too long. From the memories, from the shame, from the version of yourself you wish never existed. But the more you run, the more power you give it. You don't outrun your past. You carry it with you, dragging it like dead weight, letting it whisper in your ear that you'll never be more than your worst mistakes. But here's the truth. Your past only owns you if you let it. Every mistake, every failure, every regret, it wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build you. The problem isn't that you've made mistakes. The problem is that you let those mistakes define you instead of refine you. Steel is made in fire. It gets burned, hammered, shaped into something stronger than before. You think your past burned you? Good. That means you're being reforged. But some people never step out of the flames. They sit in their mistakes like they're a prison cell instead of a lesson. They wrap themselves in shame, never realizing that shame is just wisdom left unused. Shame keeps you stuck. Wisdom moves you forward. If you spend your life drowning in guilt, you've learned nothing. If all you do is regret, then what was the point of the pain? Regret should be fuel, not an anchor. You either let it push you forward, or you let it sink you. The past is not a life sentence, it's a teacher. And like any good teacher, its job is to make you uncomfortable, to challenge you, to force you to grow. But at some point, you're supposed to graduate. You're supposed to take the lesson and move on. So, what's it going to be? Will you keep looking back, rewriting the same chapter, reliving the same failures? Or will you turn the page and write something new? Because you can't change the past, but you can choose whether it haunts you or hones you. They'll notice the change. They always do. At first, they'll laugh. They'll remind you of who you used to be. Throw your past in your face like it's a chain you're still supposed to wear. They'll poke at old wounds, test you, waiting for the moment you crumble and beg for redemption. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. You don't owe them anything. Not an explanation, not an apology, not a single damn word. People love to trap you in the version of yourself that serves them best. They want you guilty, ashamed, forever proving yourself. But the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop justifying who you've become, that's when you take your power back. The wolf doesn't explain itself to the sheep. It doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't justify why it left the pack or why it stands alone. It moves in silence, and that silence is louder than any excuse could ever be. The world expects you to grovel, to plead for their approval, to wear your past like a scarlet letter and ask for permission to be better. But the strongest thing you can do, say nothing. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them whisper about who you used to be. You'll be too busy becoming who you are. Because silence is a mirror. It forces them to sit with their own bitterness, their own insecurity. The ones who hate to see you rise, they're the ones who need you to stay small. So don't explain yourself. Outgrow them. And when they realize they no longer have control over you, when they finally understand that you've left their version of you behind, that silence will be the loudest thing they've ever heard. There comes a moment when you realize the person you used to be is nothing more than a shadow, a ghost lingering in the corners of your mind, whispering doubts, clinging to regrets. That version of you is familiar, but familiarity is a prison. You don't belong there anymore. You can't keep carrying the weight of your past, dragging it like a corpse strapped to your back. It's not your burden anymore. The mistakes, the failures, the guilt, they don't define you unless you let them. So, let them go. Not with hesitation, not with second guessing, with fire. You don't burn bridges. You burn the old version of yourself that walked them, the one who begged for forgiveness, who stayed small, who let the past dictate their worth. That version of you served its time. Now, it's dead weight. People will try to remind you of who you were. They'll try to hand you the chains you just broke. But here's the thing about the past. It only holds power if you keep reaching for it. Drop it. Let them pick it up if they want to. Let them hold on to the old you. You have better things to carry. This is the final test. Walking forward without looking back. Because the second you stop glancing over your shoulder, the second you stop searching for the approval of those who only knew the broken version of you, that's when you finally become free. You stand at a crossroads, one path leading back into the shadows of who you used to be, the other into the unknown. The past whispers, begging you to turn around, to stay familiar with the weight you've carried for so long. But here's the truth. The past doesn't define you. This moment does. Not yesterday. Not the mistakes you made. Not the people who couldn't see beyond your failures. Right now, this breath, this decision, this step forward, this is what matters. So, what's it gonna be? You got two choices. Let the past haunt you or turn it into fuel. Keep reliving your mistakes, feeding the ghosts that hold you back, or rip the chains off and build something new with the wreckage. Most people never make it past this point. They stay shackled by old guilt, controlled by the expectations of those who refuse to let them evolve. They spend their lives apologizing for who they used to be instead of proving who they've become. But you didn't come this far just to be caged by a version of yourself that no longer exists. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them keep rewriting your past as if it's the only story you'll ever have. It doesn't matter. Because while they're stuck looking backward, you'll be too busy becoming unstoppable. And here's the final gut punch. Monsters aren't made in the light. They're made in the dark. You survived the dark. You clawed your way out. You took every failure, every regret, every scar, and turned them into something unbreakable. Now own it.